Today, we heard that the Trump administration stopped sending military aids to Ukraine, and this is temporarily, right? Now, people are saying, why is it that they're doing this? All that Ukraine wanted was security guarantees. Let's talk about security guarantees, right? If you believe that Russia is fighting Ukraine, then we can say yes. However, if you are on the side of those who believe that Russia is actually fighting NATO, then it is Russia that needs security guarantees, not Ukraine. So the question then becomes, who is it that Russia is really fighting? Now, I'm going to take you back to 2014. Ukraine had a president called Viktor Yanukovych. Viktor Yanukovych received two economic proposals. One was from the EU, the European Union, and the other one was from Russia. When he studied both, he chose the one from Russia. Why? Because he felt like it was better. So when he made that decision, the West told the Ukrainian population that Viktor Yanukovych does not want Ukraine to join the EU. Now, this proposal had nothing to do with joining the EU. This is just like Germany chooses to buy gas from Russia. Does it mean that they are pro-Russian? No, it has nothing to do with that. This is just economics exchange. So, with that being said, when the Ukrainian population heard this propaganda that Viktor Yanukovych, by choosing this contract, does not want Ukraine to join the EU, then they protested. And during this protest, the CIA, right, with a lady in the State Department called Victoria Nuland, they infiltrated this protest group and fomented a coup d'etat. With that, Viktor Yanukovych fled to Russia. They basically just chased him out. Although he was saying, look, we can even have an election. I can, leave early if I lose the election.
Yanukovych was elected as the fourth president of Ukraine in 2010. In 2013, he refused to sign a political and trade agreement with the European Union. This deal was meant to smoothen the trading process between Ukraine and the EU. Instead, Yanukovych took a $15 billion bailout from Russia. What followed was a string of violent clashes. Riots broke out across Kiev that overthrew the Yanukovych government in February 2014.
Russia saw that as NATO coming to its borders. And it wasn't something they made up. The United States already started talking about this way before.
On December 15, 2021, Putin put on the table a draft Russia-U.S. security agreement. You can find it online. The basis of it is no NATO enlargement. I called the White House that next week after that, begging them, take the negotiations. Putin's offered something, avoid this war. Oh, Jeff, there's not going to be a war. Why don't you announce it? And he said, no, our policy is an open door. This is Jake Sullivan. Our policy is an open door policy. Open door for NATO enlargement. You don't have your right to put your military bases anywhere you want and expect peace in this world.
First, the West, the United States in particularly, remove an elected leader from a sovereign country. And second, they want to bring NATO to the doorstep of Russia. So Putin said, okay. He then decided to bring back Crimea to Russia. Crimea was Russian first. Most people there speak Russian language. In addition to that, the Donbass area, which is Russian speaking as well, they decided, okay, since you are, removing an elected official, right? Since we are breaking laws, we might as well just leave Ukraine and be on our own. We knew very well that it was the United States that made a coup d'etat because of this conversation.
2014, the United States participated actively in the overthrow of Yanukovych. A typical U.S. regime change operation, have no doubt about it. And the Russians did us a favor. They intercepted a really ugly call between Victoria Nuland, my colleague at Columbia University now, between her and the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Jeffrey Piat, and they talked about regime change. They said, who's going to be the next government? Why don't we pick this one? No, Klitschko shouldn't go in. It should be Yatsenyuk.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience.
Okay.
So that would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it.
After they decided who was going to run Ukraine, they then decided to send troops to the Donbass, the separatists, those who had decided to leave Ukraine. From 2014 all the way until 2022, the Ukraine army was incapable of taking over the Donbass area. They fought for 6 years. And every single time they fought the Donbass kept pushing them back. Of course, they had some help from some mercenary in Russia. But they weren't able to take the Donbass for 6 years. So when Russia decided in 2022 that they want to intervene, it's because, first of all, they found out that NATO was preparing Ukraine for a war, and they were also preparing chemical weapons to use against the East, and probably was going to blame Russia or something. So their plan was that, Ukraine will go on ahead and take the Donbass area, and then after that, go back and take Crimea. Then NATO will just install everything they wanted to install like that. And Russia will be obligated to accept it because Russia would not go to war with NATO. So before they accomplish the plan, Putin said, no, we are going to respond before you accomplish that plan. So when you look at the Ukraine army today, 70% of that army is NATO. The Ukraine army on its own could not even take the Donbass. What makes you believe that they can fight Russia? Most of the soldiers in there come from NATO as mercenaries because they don't want, people to know that they are NATOs, but we all know that. The weapons come from NATO. The instructors comes from NATO. Where do they train? In Europe, in NATO's camps. Ukraine only have about 30% of soldiers in there. So we have more evidence to show that Russia is fighting NATO. And so since Russia is fighting NATO, then the security guarantees must be given to Russia, not Ukraine. What security guarantees Ukraine needs when Russia is not after them? And Trump knows that very well. That is why Trump does not want to give security guarantees to Ukraine. Because the narrative of the West doesn't make any sense. They're telling you that Putin just got up for no reason and attacked Ukraine. That's it. Nothing provoked it. They want you to remember that it happened in 2022. The history will remember, and that we know, is that it is the West that fomented a coup d'etat in 2014. So it is the West that invaded a sovereign Ukraine, removed an elected official, and threatened to make Ukraine a NATO member. Therefore, in 2022, Russia only responded to that invasion. That is why Trump say that it's Ukraine that started it, because they should have never accepted to join NATO. Today,